Imagine the largest heart on Earth, the size of a small car, beating for the very last time. A blue whale, 30 meters long, weighing 200 tons, floating somewhere in the endless Pacific. This giant has traveled the oceans for over 90 years. It has crossed the equator 100 times. It has sung songs that traveled 1,000 kilometers through the water. But now, in the cold darkness, something is different. The whale is dying. And what happens next is one of the most incredible, bizarre, and beautiful events in all of nature. A phenomenon so strange that scientists only discovered it in the 1980s. So complex that a single whale's death will create an entire civilization, an underwater city that will thrive for a century. This is the story of the whale fall. As life fades from the whale's body, something remarkable begins. The whale stops swimming. Its massive body, which has been fighting gravity its entire life, finally surrenders, and it begins to sink. But this isn't a gentle drift. This is a plummet into the abyss. The whale's body drops through the sunlight zone, past schools of fish that scatter in confusion, down through the twilight zone where the light turns from blue to black. The water pressure increases, 1 atmosphere, 2 atmospheres, 10, 20. The pressure that would crush a human submarine is nothing to this giant's body. Down, 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 past the midnight zone where no sunlight has ever reached, past bioluminescent jellyfish that pulse like alien heartbeats, past giant squid that watch with eyes the size of dinner plates. The whale falls for hours. Sometimes it takes a full day, sinking through 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers, sometimes 4 kilometers of water, until finally, with a silent impact that sends up a cloud of ancient sediment, it lands on the seafloor, the deepest, darkest, most remote place on Earth. And now, the feast begins. Within hours, they smell it. Death has a signature in the ocean, and it travels far. The first to arrive are the sleeper sharks, prehistoric-looking creatures that move through the darkness like ghosts. Their dead white eyes see nothing, but they don't need to. They can smell a single drop of blood from kilometers away. These sharks are slow, ancient, and patient. Some of them may be 400 years old. They were alive when Shakespeare was writing his plays. They tear into the whale with serrated teeth, ripping away chunks of blubber the size of cars. The feeding frenzy attracts more predators. Hagfish, the ocean's most disgusting creature, arrive by the hundreds. These eel-like nightmares don't have jaws. Instead, they tie their bodies into knots and use leverage to rip flesh from bone. And when threatened, they produce slime. Not just a little slime, they can turn an entire bucket of water into thick, choking gel in seconds. Giant isopods scuttle across the carcass, pillbugs the size of footballs with black eyes and armored shells. They look like something from another planet. Rat-tail fish with their long, tapering tails dart in and out, stealing scraps. Crabs with legs spanning a meter patrol the edges of the feast. For days, sometimes weeks, the ocean floor becomes a feeding arena. The water turns cloudy with fat and oils. Thousands of kilograms of flesh are consumed. The whale that once ruled the surface is now being torn apart, piece by piece, in total darkness. But here's what's crazy. This stage alone can last up to 2 years. 2 years of continuous feeding. Because a blue whale isn't just big, it's astronomically massive. There's so much meat, so much fat, so much energy stored in that body that it can feed the deep sea for years. And when the sharks and fish finally leave, when they've eaten their fill and only bones remain, that's when things get truly weird. Now the whale fall enters its second phase. The skeleton lies on the sea floor, picked clean, gleaming white in the darkness. You might think the story is over, but it's only just beginning.
Because all that eating, all that flesh being torn and digested has done something to the surrounding environment. Tons of nutrients have been released into the sediment. Fats, oils, proteins, an explosion of organic matter in a place that normally receives almost nothing. And the opportunists arrive. Sea cucumbers, those bizarre sausage-shaped creatures, crawl across the bones by the hundreds, vacuuming up organic particles. Sea snails you've never heard of, species that exist nowhere else on Earth, emerge from the sediment. Polychaete worms, bristleworms with iridescent bodies and feather-like appendages, set up colonies on the ribs. Crustaceans burrow into the sediment beneath the skull, creating tunnel systems like an underground city. Tiny shrimp, translucent and eyeless, swarm through these tunnels. They've never seen light. They've never needed to. But the strangest residents are yet to come. Enter the zombie worms. Their scientific name is Osedax, which literally means bone eater in Latin. And these creatures are like nothing else on Earth. They have no mouth, no stomach, no digestive system at all. They look like red feathers sticking out of the whale's bones, waving in the current. So how do they eat bones? They drill into the skeleton using acid, actual acid. They secrete enzymes that dissolve bone like a chemical drill, boring deep into the calcium and reaching the fats and proteins stored inside. But here's the truly alien part. They don't digest this food themselves. Inside their bodies, they house colonies of bacteria. Billions of bacteria living in a specialized organ, breaking down the nutrients and sharing them with the worm. It's not just feeding, it's a partnership, a symbiosis so intimate that neither organism can survive without the other. And these zombie worms, they're wildly successful. Thousands of them colonize a single whale skeleton, turning the bones into Swiss cheese. Some bones become so riddled with tunnels that they look like coral. This stage can last for decades, 20, 30, even 50 years of slow, methodical bone consumption. Now we enter the final, most bizarre phase of the whale fall. The bones are crumbling. The zombie worms have done their work, and something chemical is happening in the sediment below. As all that bone breaks down, as fats and oils seep deeper into the seafloor, bacteria begin to work on these materials. Anaerobic bacteria that don't need oxygen. They break down the lipids and produce something unexpected, hydrogen sulfide, the same gas that makes rotten eggs smell terrible. But down here, in the eternal darkness, hydrogen sulfide isn't a waste product, it's energy. Sulfur-eating bacteria bloom around the skeleton. They form thick, white mats that look like snow covering the bones. These bacteria are chemosynthetic. They create energy from chemicals instead of sunlight. They're doing the deep-sea version of photosynthesis, building sugar molecules from hydrogen sulfide. And where there are bacteria, there are animals that have evolved to farm them. Giant clams appear, clams the size of dinner plates that also house symbiotic bacteria in their tissues. Tube worms sprout from the sediment, their red plumes waving in the current, filtering bacteria from the water. Limpets graze on bacterial mats like tiny underwater cattle. The whale skeleton has become a deep-sea oasis, a chemosynthetic ecosystem powered entirely by the breakdown of one animal's body. Scientists have identified over 43 species that depend specifically on whale falls. Some of these species exist nowhere else on Earth. They evolved specifically to exploit this resource. And here's what blows my mind. This final stage can last for 50 to 100 years, an entire century of life sustained by a single death. Let's step back and think about what we've just witnessed. One whale, one death, one body sinking into darkness. And from that single event, decades of life for thousands of organisms, 4 distinct ecological stages, entire species that depend on this cycle. A chain of energy transfer so efficient that almost nothing is wasted.
Scientists estimate that over 12,490 individual organisms can be sustained by a single whale fall. That's not species, that's individual animals, a population larger than some small towns. But here's what's even more incredible. Whale falls may be stepping stones for deep-sea life. Many of the species found at whale falls are also found at hydrothermal vents, those volcanic hotspots on the ocean floor that support similar chemosynthetic ecosystems. Scientists think that whale falls act as bridges between vent systems, which can be thousands of kilometers apart. When a vent system dies, its specialized creatures might go extinct unless they can reach another vent. But whale falls, scattered across the deep ocean, provide temporary homes, oases where vent species can survive, reproduce, and send their larvae drifting through the abyss until they find a new vent. Whales, in death, may be connecting ecosystems across the entire ocean floor. In a world where we often think of death as an ending, the whale fall reminds us of something profound. Every ending is a beginning. Every loss feeds something new. Every death gives life. That blue whale sinking through the darkness wasn't disappearing, it was transforming. Its body became a world. Its bones became a city. Its death became a century of life for thousands of creatures that exist nowhere else in the universe. Nothing is wasted. Everything connects. Every detail, no matter how dark or strange, is part of an incredibly complex and beautiful system. And somewhere, right now, in the deepest parts of the ocean, another whale is sinking. Another feast is beginning. Another world is being born. The cycle continues, as it has for millions of years, as it will for millions more. That is the whale fall.